Good, what's good? Good day, good day. Listen, welcome back to another sensible reactions. Okay, baby. Listen, so we're gonna be doing, of course, the psychology crash course. Okay, baby. As we have been, we're gonna go ahead and get into it. I think the first one is pretty much brains, versus your bias, and I'm interested in knowing kind of where you gonna go with this one because you know how he be. He a trip. I like him though. His teaching style is it works for me. Okay. Listen, before we begin, I just want to say, if you are new, hello, thank you for popping up and showing up. I appreciate it. For anybody that's been dropping in and showing love, I thank you. Whether you've been dropping love on, showing love on here, or if you've been on the good old YouTube, which if you do not know, that's why I post my videos. I am going to be doing, I'm going to be dropping my whole stream on YouTube. I'm going to be doing my sensible reactions, and I'm going to have to hit a pause because I'm not going to be able to do a full stream, like hours and hours. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chop that up, and do a part two. Okay. So yeah, that's going to be for the good day videos, the good day talks. Anyway, that's not what you here for. You here for the sensible reaction. So welcome, welcome, and welcome. And I might be doing some extra sensible reactions today too. We're gonna see how we feeling. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and get into the video, baby. Okay, I'm not gonna hold you up. Let's get into it. Let me make sure everything, y'all. Give me 1 second. Yup. That's about right. All right, let's go.
In your lifetime, you have probably stared down any number of ability tests and course exams and PSATs, SATs, ACTs, GREs, GCSEs, whatever you got in your country. Humans, it seems, really get a thrill out of measuring, ranking, and comparing each other's intelligence. Unfortunately, as you saw last week, historically, we have been kind of bad at that. Today, we think of intelligence as determined by a series of factors related to genetics, environment, education, perhaps even randomness itself, some aspects of which may correlate with belonging to a particular social group and others not. The key here, though, is that we don't fully understand how or how much some of these factors work. How do elements like personal history and conditions like poverty, access to education, stress, even nutrition affect someone's scores on cognitive tests? And if a group of people share some of these conditions, how will they respond, both as individuals and as a group, to certain potentially biased intelligence tests? In the end, the irony is that in our ongoing effort to measure human intelligence, most of what we've learned is simply what we don't know.
That right too. Okay. I can believe that now, baby.
Is a piano? Which one of these things is least like the others? Juice is to glass as hand is to what? Which one of these numbers does not belong in the series? Bernice had X number of jelly beans. She ate one, then
I used to love them kind of little games. I used to play, what is it? Oh, dang. I need to start back going on there. I'm glad I saw this and thought about that. So it used to be called, yeah, mind games. I used to play. Still bookmark. Look at that. Yeah, man, mindgames.com. I used to come on here and really just play anything, in all honesty. I used to, little memory cards. You know what I'm saying? Work on your memory, keep your memory good, Yeah, you know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? The reality though is that the real issue is that it's overstimulated, okay? I'm overstimulated. We've been overstimulated. If I was not doing what I'm doing currently right now in front of you, and if that was not a part of my ministry, if you will, I really wouldn't be here on the internet, okay? Just to be honest with you, I wouldn't have nothing, okay? I would have did away with social media a long time ago. Now, do I feel like eventually that's going to be my goal as well? It is, okay? At least as much as I can, girl, because just like the older people when the internet came out and you had to start paying online, okay? Just imagine what else might change that now we gonna be like, girl, you gotta do that online, nobody not do all that, because you already know customer service, right? They get to the point where it's too many people, not too many people, it's people, give me 1 second, whereas people, girl, you can't even talk to them, like, people work customer service, but they make it real difficult to get to these people. Some places like the United States, first of all, let's talk about that. Okay, I'm gonna make this faster. Anything dealing with the government, baby, why is it hard to get y'all on the phone? Okay, that's what I want to know. It's gonna be that hard to get y'all on the phone. It's and even now, of course, we know it's even worse. I mean, you know, but anyway, you want to, do a little 1-2, play a couple of games, and have a little fun. This right here, man, it's dope. I gotta start coming back on here. Let me go ahead and pin that. All right, let's continue.
Gave half of what was left to Bruno, then she ate another and gave half of the remainder to her dog. Now she only has 5 feet. How many did she have? These questions are similar to what you'd find on today's most widely used intelligence tests, the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale, or WAIS, and the Wechsler Intelligence Scale for Children, or WISC. Originally published by psychologist David Wechsler in 1955, the current edition of the exam consists of 15 different subtests.
So the IQ test, I've never done one of these kind of tests that I know of, but this looks familiar. I probably have. I'm tripping. I just said. At least I'm gonna say this. I don't know what is and what is not like a formal IQ test. I guess this would be, right? Let's see. Okay, so that's not the case. So this is like a little bit of a different situation. Okay. Let's continue.
Assess things like vocabulary, similarities between objects and concepts, and patterns in letters and numbers. Cognitive tests usually fall into...
Okay, cognitive tests. Okay, now that makes sense. Now, I did it for a job. Okay.
one of 2 categories. Achievement, or the kind that reflect what you've learned, and aptitude, the kind that's supposed to predict your ability to learn something new. So the WAIS and the WISC are aptitude tests, and your final exam at the end of your math class is an achievement test. So how do we know if an intelligence test, or any other test for that matter, is actually any good? Well, today, we do have some standards. To be widely accepted, a test must hit 3 important marks. It has to be standardized, reliable, and valid. Standardization is basically about comparability. Whether you answer 15 or 50 questions correctly on a test actually means very little until you can compare those scores against how others performed. So to achieve meaningful comparisons, test makers must first give the test to a representative sample group, which sets a standard by which to...
Now I'm about to do an IQ test. For all the people who like me out there, who like challenging yourself, and then especially when you have those in the moment things just kind of click. It's like, you know what, I can use this. I can do something with this. I'm all about, again, growth, expansion, like really just growing within yourself. You know what I'm saying? I might not be the best when it comes to certain academics or certain I might not be the best when it comes to certain subjects, okay, if you will, or have certain skills, if you will, but in my lane, it works for me, okay? And that's all I need you to do, okay? Do what works for you. Simple.
Compare future test takers. You've probably heard of a bell curve. Whether you're measuring height or mental aptitude or love of the Beatles, it's often assumed that everyone you're measuring will fall into what's called a normal pattern. Most scores will fall in the mid-range, while fewer hit the extremes. And actually, it's those extremes that intelligence tests are most widely and effectively used for. They might help an educator identify a gifted student who totally blows the roof off a test, but they're also useful in helping clinicians determine who might have a disability or be facing some specific barrier. With victims of traumatic brain injury or stroke, for example, a WAIS test can do a nice job of sussing out whether a patient who's struggling with with language actually has a problem remembering and identifying words, or if they're just having a hard time processing the information quickly. But these tests should be regarded more skeptically when it comes to issues that are either way more specific or way more broad. Like, they won't be able to answer questions along the lines of, will Jesse get into Harvard, or are women smarter than men? They're just not designed.
Oh, that's what GBD is for, right?
To do that. And in any case, simply knowing where you fall in a normal curve on a standardized test doesn't mean much if the test is poorly designed. So along with being standardized, a good test has high reliability, meaning it yields dependably consistent results. One way to determine this is to have people take the same test a second time, or some similar version of it. If the two performances resemble one another, if the scores correlate, then the test is thought to have good reliability. And the third requirement for the testing trifecta is simply validity, or the extent to which a test measures or predicts what it's supposed to. And there are different kinds of validity. For instance, if I take the Weiss IQ test and my scores accurately predict how good my grades in college will be, that's a simple kind of predictive or criterion validity. On the other hand, if I take the test and my scores correlate strongly with my results on another similar cognitive test, like the Stanford Binet, that falls under the broad category of construct validity. The key is that all of these are ways to see if a test measures.
I was just sitting here thinking how much I'm already sure. Some of these companies, I was just thinking about doing the IQ test, and I'm like, okay, they got free versions, they got paid. How do you even know that these people are keeping it a banging in regards to the scores that you get? You know what I mean? You know how that go. Be a whole situation. People think they didn't did excellent, and then you see a lawsuit years later on some random that, baby, these people's giving false information. And you know how it go. You know how it go.
What it claims to measure. But the stickiest wicket of them all is what we make of the test scores themselves. We've all heard plenty about the influence of both nature and nurture in psychology, so the big question is, do our genetics influence our intelligence, or does our environment? And this is an easy question to answer because they both do. And that is important. If the history of intelligence testing has taught us anything, it's that assuming everyone is smart in the same way and for the same reason can lead to disastrously bad conclusions. So let's look at the scientific evidence, and the best place for that is the wealth of twin and adoption studies, which have been fascinatingly helpful in illustrating how genetics and environment can both influence intelligence. For example, research has shown that identical twins who were raised together have the highest rate of similarity in intelligence scores of any group. Fraternal twins who share only half the genes tend to be much less similar in their scores, even when raised in the same home. Likewise, neuroimaging studies show that certain brain regions, like those associated with language, are structurally similar between identical twins and show similar activity while doing the same kinds of mental tasks. The brains of fraternal twins raised in the same home are very similar in some areas, but less so in others. But identical twins who were raised together have the same brain, at least according to neuroimaging scans. Some studies even show that identical twins raised.
Yeah. I definitely don't believe that, yeah. I mean, excuse my language, but I definitely don't believe that. Every set of identical twins that I know of have been different since the day that I met them. Okay? And these are family members. Baby, they've been different. They're two totally different people. And to be clear, they don't even process or go about things the same way.
Correlation than fraternal twins raised together. And maybe even more interesting is that these intelligence correlations actually increase over time. In one mega study of 11,000 twin pairs in 4 countries, that correlation kept increasing from middle childhood to adolescence to young adulthood and continued to increase through adulthood. Similar research has looked at adopted children.
Now that right there. Now if you raising them to be, then I believe yes. And then also I feel like some twins come out and like that's just naturally who they are. Like literally everything aligns to almost like a T, like they said, two of the same. You know what I mean? Goodness.
And compared their scores with those of their adoptive siblings, parents, and biological parents. And the results can be kind of surprising, because as adopted kids grow up, their mental similarities to their adoptive families actually get smaller over time until there's virtually no correlation by adulthood. Instead, they become more similar in terms of mental aptitude to their biological parents over time, even if they'd never met. In other words, genes appear to matter. You could take 100 kids and raise them in the exact same way, and as adults, they'd still have different aptitudes. But Does this mean that when it comes to intelligence, we're all nature and no nurture? Well, luckily, and somewhat obviously, no. Life experiences and environment also matter. One sad example of how early environments affect children can be found in the work of American psychologist J. McVicker Hunt in a destitute Iranian orphanage in the 1970s. Conditions were really, really bad. Infants received minimal care, and whatever attention they did get was on a routine schedule, never in response to cooing or crying or anything else.
Oh my goodness.
Basically, they were being raised with no cause and effect between their behaviors and the responses of their caregivers, and as a result, they didn't learn how to communicate.
So they just there? Like, what the heck?
With no stimulation or social response, the kids were just kind of passive, vacant lumps. Deprivation was essentially trumping any inborn intelligence. So Hunt started a program.
And this is what I was talking about in my other video. Who approved of this? Who approves to put your kids in this type of case study? Girl, who decide to do this? Put your kid in a certain type of experiment. Some experiments, I think it's just like, that's a hard decision to be making, baby. To put your kid in that type of situation. I don't know how long it was. I don't know if he said it or not. But anyway, baby, like, oh my goodness. Then you have to turn around and, depending on how long they're in there, how much does that mess up their actual development? Then you got to go and do back work. And do you have the skills to even undo this problem? I need to, because I'm pretty sure it's out there. Experiment babies, I don't know how else to put it. And kind of see where they are now. I know it's been some people. I've even watched test tube, like kids who, you know what I'm saying? I've even listened to some people and just speak on their experience and how they feel in regards to how they came about and so forth and so on. And it's just interesting to see, man. Everybody, life is different. Everybody's existence and the way that they came about also is a lot different.
He trained caregivers to actually talk to infants, to teach them how to mimic sounds and actions, and eventually sounds and words from their language. The results were tremendous. The kids started to learn really quickly and basically just came alive. While it's an extreme example, Hunt's research showed how malleable early childhood intelligence can be, especially in disadvantaged and stressful conditions. So you can see that environment and heredity interact to affect intelligence, and that some tricky implications can come out of that conclusion. But that's hardly the only controversy when it comes to how we view and measure intelligence. There have been some sensational headline-courting studies of genetic and social influences that have suggested that fundamental differences in intelligence may exist between genders and races, but many of these studies are tangled up in questions of how potential testing bias may affect performance. Basically, if a test inadvertently measures differences caused by cultural experiences or social factors instead of what we might call innate intelligence, then you might say that the test is biased. Extreme example, in the past, immigrants to the US were classified as feeble-minded if they couldn't answer distinctly American questions, like who was the first American president, or what's a milkshake?
Yeah,
Today, concerns about bias focus on differences among members of the same.
Exactly. So that it becomes different as well. The measurement, what you actually using to measure. Like, what are you even asking these people?
Same general culture. Say, a poor rural kid who might be plenty smart but will test low if questions involve urban upper-class concepts like taking taxis and drinking tea out of giant cups or the rules of tennis. So the questions themselves can skew performance results, but who administers the test can also affect.
I appreciate the disclaimer that they put up here. Although I'm gonna go ahead and read it. Dr. B says, although we use this as an example, and hopefully you get the point, urban-rural differences of this kind are rapidly disappearing in America. Why? Because people have more access to information, and so a rural kid's going to be better informed, but it's possible that the reverse, asking a city kid about country stuff, would still be tough.
Test low if questions involve urban upper-class concepts like taking taxis and drinking tea out of giant cups or the rules of tennis. So the questions themselves can skew performance results, but who administers the test can also affect outcomes. Women tend to do better with a fellow female administrator, and African Americans often score higher if their test is given by an African American instructor. And the risk of bias may even fall to the test taker's own expectations.
So now culture plays a part into it, because environment, culture. That's why America is a little, that's why I feel like certain questions shouldn't be asked. I feel like you should ask very general things.
example, many studies have found that if you give a math test to equally capable men and women, but just before starting you tell the subjects that women usually score lower than men, you actually negatively affect the women's performance. This self-fulfilling concern that you might mess up and inadvertently fulfill some negative stereotype is called stereotype threat. It was first described by social psychologists Claude Steele and Joshua Aronson, and it's been demonstrated frequently across a whole host of interesting studies. Now, we've only scratched the surface of this mess that is intelligence testing. An important thing to remember next time you ace or bomb a test is that you are far more complicated and nuanced than any test score. Don't let a number puff you up or drag you down, and don't let it define you. We all have room for self-improvement. We are all full of infinite, surprising potential. And answers to the questions I asked earlier. A piano is a musical instrument played using a keyboard. The banana is the least similar to the others. Juice is to glass as hand is to glove. The number 2 does not belong in the series, and Bernice began with 23 jelly beans. Today, your intelligent mind learned how we currently...
I'm too done. He made me forget what I was about to say. I'm so over it. Wait, hold on, y'all. Let me go back. Girl, cause what?
And nuanced than any test score. Don't let a number puff you up or drag you down lower than men. You actually negatively affect the women's performance. This self-fulfilling concern that you might mess up and inadvertently fulfill some negative stereotype is called stereotype threat. It was first described by social psychologists Claude Steele and Joshua Aronson, and it's been demonstrated frequently across all...
There we go. Okay, so what I was gonna say is I plan on doing some reactions to some case studies and different things like that. Now that, honestly, it depends. I'm thinking about keeping this series going in terms of like the educational side, but I also want to do some reactions to some real important topics as well. Not that this ain't important. I'm saying like some right now information. Let me come back. Right now information, okay? So I'm thinking about doing that as well. I typically kind of do that more so on the Good Day Talks. But we might get into that on sensible reactions. I know for sure. It's just that with sensible reactions, I'm a little bit different than I am with the Good Day Talks. So Good Day Talks, I'm a little bit more serious, you know what I'm saying, than I am on this side with the sensible reactions, because it's really like, you know, let's make sense of this, but also like it should be like a given. You feel what I'm saying? What are y'all doing? Of course, everybody don't think the same. You just gotta be sensible. You know what I'm saying? It's just like make it make sense. You feel what I'm saying? That's that type of situation. You just gotta make it make sense. What's supposed to make sense and what don't supposed to make sense ain't gonna ever make goddamn sense. And you need to know that too, because some people skip that part. And so that's what I'm here for. You know, all of the above. But anyway, we down 1, baby. We got 2 more to go. So y'all stick around. And yeah, I'll catch y'all in the next one. Baby, if you don't know, you watching this right now and you watching it the day it dropped, the video, the next one is gonna drop tomorrow, okay? And then when you watch that one, the next one gonna drop that day. So what I typically am trying to do here, I typically post on YouTube Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays. I might throw in some on a Friday. I might post me some shorts throughout the week, just depending on how I feel. Sometimes I post some stuff on the weekend too, but it's mostly gonna probably be like a short or something. I really don't like posting on the weekends because I like living my life, because I actually do work outside of. So yeah, okay. But all right, y'all have a good one, and I'll catch y'all on the next one, baby. Okay.